Enrollment is dropping and costs are rising. How San Diego schools are planning for a new round of budget cuts. And after decades of serving in local government, Ron Roberts is days away from leaving office. He speaks with KPBS about the challenges San Diego faced over the years.
It's not just commuters, but it's also Amtrak going, points north, and also the freight train. So it'll be a pretty significant impact to everyone.
Cliff erosion in Del Mar could become a multi-billion-dollar problem. How the changing coastline will affect public transportation.
Connect here. Boom. That's it.
And improving solar equity. How the NAACP is working with a local nonprofit to make alternative energy more accessible. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. San Diego Public Schools will have to operate with less money. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks tells us the school board is working on a new budget that includes spending cuts.
The district says it will have to cut nearly $37 million from its budget next school year and more than $38 million the following year. The main culprits: increased spending on pensions and special education and falling enrollment, which means less revenue. Together, pensions and special ed are projected to add about $37 million in costs each of the next 2 years. Meanwhile, the district expects to enroll about 1,500 fewer kids each year. It's a problem that's echoed nationally and could grow worse if a recession hits, but San Diego Unified says it's on the right track, with its budget gap shrinking since making deep cuts 2 years ago. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
A challenge to a major housing development in North County will be decided by voters. The Board of Supervisors has approved a ballot measure for the 2020 primary election. It will ask voters if they approve of recent changes to the county's general plan. Those changes allow for the Newland Sierra development to be built in an area west of I-15 near Escondido. Critics say the development is too large for the area, which is considered high risk for wildfires. Today included the final board meeting for a longtime county supervisor, Ron Roberts, who has been an elected official since 1987, first serving on the San Diego City Council. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen spoke with Roberts for a look back at his 3 decades in local government.
Supervisor Roberts, thanks so much for speaking with us.
No, I'm glad to do it, believe me.
You entered office really at the height of the AIDS epidemic. And you also played a role in the city of San Diego getting its first AIDS hospice, the Truax House in Bankers Hill. What did you learn from that public health crisis, and how did you sort of carry it forward in overseeing public health at the county?
Well, first of all, when I was elected, it was a new subject, so to speak, but it was happening very, very fast. In fact, I had a couple of neighbors who both died in short order. Just after, not too long after I was seated, and it drove home the fact it was a real crisis. This was affecting people, and at that time, you didn't know. I mean, are you in danger if you shake hands with people? What is this all about? I had to have people that really were knowledgeable, and that's one thing I've learned: find people that really know what is going on, and I think because of that, because we've listened, we're making a lot of progress. I'm not saying that it's not a crisis today, because it still is, but I was really proud this year when we were able to announce that our Getting to Zero campaign is getting us there. We had last year over a 20% decrease in the number of AIDS cases, and this is at the end of 2017. I don't have the numbers yet for 2018, but we are down now. The number of new cases in San Diego is down at the level where we were in 1984.
You started your time in elected office during that public health crisis. In some ways, you ended it almost in another public health crisis with hepatitis A. That was a really difficult thing for the county and the city to get their hands on, or to really tackle. What did you learn from that whole crisis?
Well, one of the things was there's a background story there that someday will probably be told. But there are people that say, well, you didn't declare a health emergency soon enough. And nobody understands the real crisis was we didn't have access to vaccine. And we were worried that if the general public stampeded to get vaccine, we weren't going to be able to have vaccine for the people that were on the street. So while it appeared like people weren't doing anything, people were working feverishly. We were working with the hospitals. We were working with the federal government and we went on the private market. We spent a lot of money for about 30,000 doses of the vaccine so that we could respond. But we were really afraid if it became a community-wide panic, that we were going to be in real trouble, and that's why there was a little deferring in terms of declaring the public health crisis.
Right now, San Diego has a growing economy, low unemployment, and yet at the same time, we're seeing a lot more people on the streets, a lot more people struggling to afford a place to live. And a lot of people see this as evidence of a failure of public policy. How do you respond to that?
Well, there's probably some truth in that. Now, I'm not sure, there's a lot of different public policies. We're not building enough affordable housing. I grew up in public housing. Linda Vista, it was a large government housing project that was built in World War II. And we lived in what we call temporary units there. They're all torn down because they were fire traps. But the fact of the matter is, there was a time, I think, when we responded. In that case, I think over 3,000 units were built in very, very short order. We couldn't do that today if our lives depended on it. We have rules and regulations that are well intended, but they're used by people largely to say, no, we don't want housing. And if you say affordable housing, we don't want them. I mean, I'm going through this. I'm working on at least a half a dozen different projects right now, and I'm really hopeful that we can do that. The fact of the matter is, right across the board, we're not building adequate numbers of housing in San Diego.
Supervisor Ron Roberts, thanks so much for talking with us.
You're welcome, Andrew. Good to see you.
Roberts also talked about efforts to address climate change and the term limits that forced him out of office. You can find the full interview on the San Diego Stories podcast at kpbs.org. An update tonight, our media partner iNewsSource has reported the San Ysidro School District was trying to recover nearly $300,000 for an after-school program that never happened. iNewsSource reporter Megan Wood has the latest.
San Ysidro gave Tyree Dillingham and her Greater San Diego After School All-Stars a no-bid contract in 2016 to provide a sports and cheer program for 1,600 students. The school district paid $276,000 up front and then canceled the contract 3 months later when no program had started. The district says it first asked to be reimbursed 2 years ago, then again this past October when iNewsSource began asking questions. A district spokesman says San Ysidro's attorney is still negotiating with Dillingham for a reimbursement. He did not answer questions about how much money the district asked for or what has caused negotiations to last 2 months. A spokesman for Dillingham told iNewsSource they didn't want to comment during negotiations. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Megan Wood.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. This year's immigration coverage has focused largely on asylum seekers at the southern border, but those who rely on the visa system are also in limbo. As Arun Ruth from WGBH Boston reports, a large percentage involved families from India.
Is it this car, Sahil? Do you know which one is this?
Manu Kumar is a working mom here on an H-1B visa for tech workers. But it was love, not work, that brought her to America. Abhishek Kumar, the man she'd long planned to marry in India, was already living and working in Massachusetts.
I was working in Bangalore. I was there for 4 years and doing pretty well in the IT industry, actually, and I feel I have compromised a little bit to be here with him, to start my family with him, because I felt he was the one.
So at that point, you kind of put career on hold?
Yes.
Manu was able to legally come to America with her new husband on what's called an H-4 visa for dependents. The H-4 visa meant that you were here legally, but you could not work.
I couldn't, no.
Was that frustrating for you?
Oh, yes.
Eventually, Manu was able to find an employer to sponsor her for an H-1B. Over the last 9 years, the Kumars built a nice life in Hopkinton, the only life their 2 sons have ever known.
They were both born here.
Yes.
They're U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
American boys.
American boys. They don't know any other country.
The Kumars have bought into the American dream, but the reality remains uncertain. If Manu and Abhishek lose their jobs or their H-1Bs don't get renewed, they could have no other choice but to self-deport and take their American boys with them.
India is our home country. We can always go back. But I just feel it's unfair to the kids who are born here because they are citizens too, right?
How do you plan your future for your family? Can you?
Not really. Frankly speaking.
Put it right here.
She says they're not making any big purchases since they'll need cash in hand if they have to suddenly leave. They've seen it happen.
We heard about a friend who got a rejection on his H-1B renewal. He was here with his family for 18 years. It seems once it's rejected and his wife isn't working, I think, so they have to move back and they are selling off their car, they're renting their house. I mean, it's a lot.
You've been here so long, had children here, created a family here, beautiful home. Do you feel American? Do you feel like America is your country?
Oh, yes.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump's former personal lawyer sentenced to 3 years in prison for multiple crimes. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
The steep bluffs along the rail line through Del Mar have collapsed several times this year, leading to questions about how safe it is to travel by train. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says moving the tracks won't be easy.
50 trains a day use this scenic line between San Diego and Los Angeles. Jim Linthicum of San Diego's regional planning agency Sandag says it's vital to keep it open.
That is the only north-south rail line that connects us. That's the second busiest intercity rail corridor in the country. And so a lot of people depend on that. It's not just commuters, but it's also Amtrak going points north, and also the freight train. So it would be a pretty significant impact to everyone.
The latest bluff collapse occurred earlier this week and caused brief delays. But Linthicum says the collapse was 30 to 40 feet away from the track. He says Sandag and the North County Transit District have already spent about $20 million stabilizing these bluffs, including about $5 million on soldier piles. You can just see the top of them buried in the ground west of the tracks.
We have been driving what's called soldier piles just a few feet away from the tracks, and those are 3-foot diameter concrete, reinforced concrete piles that go down some as long as 65 feet down from the bluff, the top of the bluff down into good solid ground. And those hold back the tracks.
Sea level rise is happening faster than predicted, which erodes the bottom of the bluffs. Scripps Institution of Oceanography researchers have shown the Del Mar bluffs erode about 6 inches a year on average, but often in unexpected chunks. This year, this part of the bluff has already lost more than 6 feet. But Linthicum says it should be possible to stabilize the bluffs for another couple of decades, until money is found for the long-term plan of building tunnels for trains to pass under Del Mar. North County Transit District engineer Stephen Fordham says the tunnel option is estimated to cost more than $3 billion.
Billion with a B. So it's a significant amount of money. I kind of liken the stabilization project as if I currently want say a fancy vehicle, I need to maintain my existing vehicle while saving money for my Lamborghini. I'm going to maintain my Toyota Camry. So that's how I kind of liken it, that we need to put our focus and stabilize the bluffs for rail traffic up through 2050 until such time we have a funded project.
Fordham says he's hoping to hear later this month about an $18 million federal grant that could pay for more stabilization of the bluffs in Del Mar next year. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
After nearly 2 weeks, representatives from nearly 200 countries are still trying to reach an agreement at the United Nations Climate Conference in Poland. The goal of the conference is to finalize the rules of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord. For some nations, that will require costly changes to how they create and use energy. The Secretary General of the UN warned time is running out.
I challenge you to work together for that purpose. And I challenge you to accelerate and finish the job and to raise ambition on all fronts. To waste this opportunity in Katowice would compromise our last best chance to stop runaway climate change. It would not only be immoral, it would be suicidal.
Activists are also attending the climate conference. Today, demonstrators from Asia pushed for Japan to stop financing of coal mines. Japan has relied heavily on coal since an earthquake caused a nuclear power plant disaster in 2011. The demand for solar technology continues. By 2020, California will require solar panels for newly built homes. Today, community leaders met in Lincoln Park to advocate for opportunities for communities of color to benefit from solar. It's day 2 of a solar panel installation. This team of skilled workers, trainees, and volunteers are close to wrapping up.
Even though we are in the sun, on the roof, I mean, we have protection, gloves, all that stuff, so it's not that bad at all, to be honest.
Grid Alternatives San Diego says these solar panels should harvest enough green energy to cover the household's needs for the next 20 to 30 years. Anthony Cross is a trainee.
When I heard about it, I was like, yeah, I want to do that, install solar panels, learn about solar installation, racking systems, and how it gets wired up and stuff like that. I was really interested in it. Lower.
Cross was referred by Job Corps.
I never have a dull moment with these guys. They're always smiling. They're always telling me what I'm doing wrong. And when they give me criticism, it's like constructive. It's not in a mean way. It's always in a positive way.
Grid Alternatives is working with the NAACP on its Solar Equity Initiative to address disparities in the solar industry and come up with solutions.
The more we can generate, the less obviously they have to pull out of the grid, right? So we try to zero out the systems for these homeowners if we can.
Grid Alternatives San Diego has installed solar panels on more than 1,000 local homes in the last decade. The nonprofit gives families and communities impacted by underemployment and pollution solar panel systems that would normally cost $10,000 to $15,000.
We just believe everybody should have access to clean energy.
Clovis Honore is an outreach coordinator for Grid Alternatives and the incoming president of the NAACP's San Diego chapter. He works to improve access to solar upgrades and solar jobs.
Not only to become employees, but to become employers and to do economic development through this growth industry that's going to continue for the foreseeable future.
It looks like it's pivoting up this way.
After a stint of dead-end jobs, 22-year-old Cross says adding solar installation to his resume is another important step towards building a career.
This is something I never thought I'd be doing, so yeah, I'm really proud of myself.
You can go to Grid Alternatives' website for more information about its job training program and its Energy for All program. The cost to tie this year's wildfires is putting a major strain on insurance companies. State officials report recent claims total about $9 billion, mostly from the Camp Fire. Claims from the Woolsey Fire in Southern California are also part of that amount. Earlier this week, it was announced that state and federal agencies will spend $3 billion on clean up debris from these fires. The director of CAL FIRE retires this week after 30 years with the agency. Ken Pimlott was interviewed by the Associated Press. He was asked about the role of climate change in firefighting and how the state might have a way to change developments of fire-prone areas.
Things are changing. The folks can say what they want to say, but when firefighters are living climate change, it's staring them in the face every day. We're seeing that not only in these more destructive and larger fires, but we're seeing it in how long fire season is and how long they're having to work. If we don't learn from what happened this year and certainly what happened last year in the North Bay, then we're certainly missing the real issue. And these are hard conversations. If it were easy, these conflicts would have been resolved obviously decades ago. But that just because they're hard doesn't mean we don't need to be back at the table.
Santa Ana winds are expected to be an issue tomorrow in our local mountains. Regina Miller has details in tonight's forecast.
Well, we do have a warming trend out there. We did see some clouds kind of pass through the area a little bit earlier on today, but then as we widen out the view, not much going on here. We are going to see some gusty Santa Ana winds starting to pick up, though, in the mountains, foothills, and some of the inland valleys. Late today or tonight into tomorrow, we'll be dealing with that. But for today, or for tonight, I should say, Borrego Springs drops to 42 degrees, mostly clear skies. Mount Laguna is mostly clear at 36 degrees. Chula Vista, you'll bottom out at 49 degrees. For tonight, mainly clear skies in the metro areas with a temperature of 52. And then we do have those gusty Santa Ana winds for tomorrow, so they'll be gusting at times 45 to 50 miles per hour again, especially in the mountains and the passes there. Now, for tomorrow's forecast into Oceanside, we're at 72 degrees. In Borrego Springs, 70. Plenty of sunshine in the forecast. Chula Vista's at 73. We've got lots of sunshine. And then for the late week, we are just going to see a nice, warm, dry forecast. So the coastal areas, we have sunshine, 72 degrees for your Thursday. Periods of sun on Friday mixing with clouds along the coast, especially early. Temperature of 68 degrees. And then abundant sunshine in the forecast for Saturday with a high of 69. The low drops to 42. Inland, we have a temperature of 76 degrees for your Thursday. And for Friday, we're at 73 degrees with periods of sun. Sunny and beautiful for Saturday and 74. In the mountain areas, it is going to be windy, so we'll be dealing with those gusty Santa Anas, 53 degrees. Periods of sun for your Friday. Winds diminish, and then plenty of sunshine for Saturday and 55. In the desert locations, sunshine, 70 degrees for your Thursday. And then we have clouds with periods of sun breaking through, 69 degrees on Friday. Sunshine and nice on Saturday at 73 degrees. I'm Regina Miller, KPBS News.
A tax on text messages might be coming to phone bills in California. The Public Utilities Commission could vote on the idea as soon as next month. It would help fund a low-income phone service program. The tax would be a flat fee and not be charged on a per-text basis. Details on the cost for each customer have not been announced. This is the time of year when Christmas tree growers make their money, but it's becoming harder for some to stay in business as more Americans choose artificial trees. AP reporter Julian Flacus has the story.
That one's better. Rosa Villarreal and her family came to this farm to pick out their Christmas tree, hoping to create a new tradition her children will remember forever.
That smell, especially the smell of it in our home, just made it feel more Christmassy to us.
But tree growers worry that customers like this family are dwindling.
This end over here was Nordman fir.
Casey Grogan, a fourth-generation tree farmer, has seen his harvest shrink over the last several years. Grogan, who represents the Pacific Northwest Christmas Tree Association, estimates about half of Oregon's tree farmers have gone out of business in the past decade.
We're an industry that would like to remain to be here and be around, and if everybody buys an artificial tree, we're not going to be here.
About 80% of Americans who put up a tree have an artificial one these days. It's now a billion-dollar industry. Denise Shackleton is shopping for 2 artificial trees in the San Francisco area after many years of putting up a real one.
It was just too much work to put the real tree on my car, get it into the house.
To cut back on that trend, tree farmers nationwide have started a social media campaign to convince Americans to branch out.
What I think we're giving to our kids in the experience is that they can be involved in it. They help us pick out the tree.
The campaign is called It's Christmas, Keep It Real, and it's funded by a 15-cent fee that growers pay on each tree they harvest.
We're just trying to stress the importance of tradition and making memories when you purchase a tree.
Mac Harmon, the CEO of Balsam Hill, the #1 artificial tree retailer in the U.S., says tree farmers are overestimating the threat to their industry.
I think a lot of the angst about artificial trees are taking over is really coming from these mid-sized farms that aren't big enough to sell to Home Depot, but don't have the kind of cut-your-own lot or enough customers for these Christmas tree lots.
But not all growers are worried. Lee Farms, outside Portland, Oregon, is now in its 6th generation and sees a steady stream of repeat customers each year.
That one?
Middle one.
Okay.
People like Barbara and Jim Loeffler come. even though their children are grown.
It's just not the same with an artificial tree.
A growing debate over a holiday tradition as the countdown to Christmas continues. Gillian Flackis, Associated Press, Oregon.
Family and friends will pay their final respects to a Pearl Harbor veteran from Poway. St. Michael's in Poway will hold a memorial service for Ray Chavez tomorrow morning. Then there's a funeral procession to Miramar National Cemetery. Chavez passed away in his sleep at his home last month. At 106 years old, he was the oldest Pearl Harbor survivor. Now here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. Changes might be coming to magnet schools in North County. On Morning Edition, how the school board in Vista is trying to improve diversity at those schools. And on Midday Edition, more than a mascot. San Diego State University takes new steps to improve awareness about the history and culture of the Aztecs. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.